in my opinion, Richard had a couple options, and I think a lot of people believe that Richard was going to use that money to pump their bags, and he has been. He has been using that money to pump those bags. But in theory, he could literally, by pegging PDI, he could mint another free bag pretty much out of thin air, right, without ever having to spend value. And while doing so, the invention of SDI, he can get up to 15% APY, as well as with more flabs, his collateral, if he collateralizes with ETH, or if we bring it over to Pulse, and since it is on Pulse, eventually Pulsechain and whatever assets that are used to collateralize for SDI will also have the ability to gain APY, which would probably end up in the vaults and end up in the community fund, so to speak. But whenever we obtain the SDI, we would be the ones, like, they'll be able to come in, pretty much use that DAI, come in and collateralize it through SDI, which will burn the DAI supply down over time, and pretty much, get us closer to where we're getting. But of course, it's going to take time. It's not like we're going to get there today or tomorrow, but technically, with him having, I think whenever people say that they look at his wallet, right, you see 200 million in ETH. That's not the case. There's 200 million in ETH, and there's still 200 million in SDI. And the reason being is because that SDI is sitting inside of a contract that is not recognized on Etherscan, because ETH knows that that money is not going to stay there. But if you go to like Arkham, I have screenshots. I'll post some of this stuff later and explain it all like in a nice thread. So being able to have it incentivizes Maker, and it incentivizes Aave as well as Compound, who we've seen payments go to Aave. We've seen payments go to and from Maker. We've seen payments go to and from Spark for different reasons. We've also seen him put $8 billion worth of hex inside the ETH proof of work chain, which is Maker's going to be forking. That was their last thing, was they're going to be forking ETH proof of work. So it's like they've all been working together, in my opinion, behind the scenes, pretty much working on this model, knowing that they're pretty much leaving ETH and the new meta will be launching your own blockchain. And Rich has pretty much front ran the market on that, in my opinion. And a lot of people are, fighting the concept of this happening. This idea alone would be the biggest narrative in crypto. And even after it reaches the dollar and pegs, the ability of people to come into that, and Maker to be able to say they literally pegged DAI when it had no supply, and then they also pegged DAI when it had an overabundance of supply, meaning they helped design the best the most decentralized stablecoin. But the method of being able to fork a chain and do what Richard did literally is what DeFi was always meant to be, right? Of course, there's different mechanics. The money that he has right now could technically bring us to $1, but you're looking at big wallets. You're looking at USDC, USD, and DAI. I don't. As far as that model goes, you can't use USDT to it's not, they don't use it. They kind of pushed it away from their protocol, so they use USDC to back their protocol, as well as collateralized stables, to collateral, like probably Wrap Pulsex, Maker, Aave, and those assets. So once SDI reaches $1, right now I believe right now it's still, you're buying it for $1, but it's literally worth, I think, around 7 cents last that I looked. So I think right now they're pretty much waiting for SDI to find the real dollar value that it's worth. You can see that there's a Spark swap, right? Has the same name, almost. I don't know if they're affiliated, but they're definitely using SDI, and they're on ramping ETH bridging ETH in, and then literally taking it, throwing it into SDI, and then burning liquidity. So they're constantly onboarding through that way, and then eating the 93-cent profits, and then using that to also buy Pulse. So it's slowly but surely coming through that one bridge. It's helping helping the mechanic and also getting people to start paying attention to that side of the equation. To me, the hexanaut theory, and then him being a MakerDAO engineer is pretty massive. And I think that kind of pointing, he's been kind of pointing with like little hints here and there, maybe with the collateralization of, messing around with the pools and, finding out. I guess today was big news with Maria doxing, right? That was huge. I think that's why we saw the price pump like we did. And then being able to, the way that Atropa is built, it could be a way to where we don't have to use the same Maker DAI model, because Maker as we know it will no longer exist. Maker is turning into a meme coin. They want to become more memeable. So Maker will only exist on Pulse and ETH after a certain period of time, whenever they're getting ready to launch their end game. They're getting rid of their token at a 24,000 to 1 ratio. And these are all fundamental values of Richard Hart, right? The unit bias and, being more memeable, so to speak. And if you think of the name of Spark and Pulse and Blast, they're all synonyms, right? So it seems like these were all hints that were giving to us that they were all going to start an attempt to work together. And, after holding DAI for so long, for, 400 million, the top holder of DAI for years, I'm sure this is how all this came about, of how can we get him not have to sell it, and still use it to the benefit of his ecosystem. And I think it came to the point to where they saw that what he had the ability to do by bringing these copies over, and then literally having them reach parity through literally it's echometric equilibrium, and the faster that you do it. So these are like the arbitrage bots that we're seeing that are arbing. We've seen them arbitrage to and from across bridges. And I think he also knew that the gas was going to go down. As soon as the gas went down today, this is whenever I noticed what he was also working on the entire time, and the ability to, in my opinion, has more than enough value for this to reach parity. What was being done? If you look at some of these pools, you're going to see like tokens called DAIbonus.com, USDC bonus claim.com, LP bonus uniswap whatever.com, and these are all over the place, right? If you take those contracts and you look at them on ETH, they say that they're phishing scams, but the reason, and so they don't show value. So just like how you cannot see his SDAI, they've made sure, since that money is going to leave the chain, Ethereum didn't want to make it look like hundreds of millions of dollars was getting dumped out of their chain, right? So they were, so ETH, or big brain shit. So what he would do would be like, if it's DAIbonus.com, he made a bunch of liquidity pools and was making money with the bar bots and also some of the sacrifice funds, and he threw the DAI into that asset, and then by using a token implementation, which is a burn mint type of function, to where he could literally burn the DAI and turn it into this other token. This other token could then be leveraged in a way to where it would hide the value. Although the value is there, it's all still sitting on ETH, and this is done with at least 200 tokens, as well as liquidity pools. And in my opinion, this is exactly what's going to happen, because it's hidden value, because the value is there. It's just sitting and waiting to be deployed. How he deploys it, is you could literally, without even using a bridge, he could do this, because he could take those assets, turn them back into the stable coins that they are, and like Ethereum, and then he could burn them on ETH, and then he could mint them directly into the liquidity pool that he has put all those other assets in. So it's an insane thing. It's massive, and that also means that Ethereum was in on it. That also means that Maker and other protocols that want to bring liquidity over might have an opportunity not only to not have to use the bridge to bring it over, but they could also, there might be a liquidity burn pool that people can go into and use, which is way safer than moving hundreds of millions of dollars across a bridge. Or they could also use SDAI itself. But in my opinion, they're going to literally be able to deploy those funds, unwrap them, burn them, mint them, which at that point they will mint. Be able to mint them over here, the value and the tokens, because he, as an owner of the Spark instance, he can literally mint that stuff, mint DAI, mint USDC, and he can literally just mint it and then be able to take it and start collateralizing with other things. There's ETH ones too, so he'll be able to do it the same thing with ETH. Wrap Bitcoin. I haven't even looked into all of them. I literally just found this out today, and this is what literally broke the camel on the back for me, because the Hexanaut thing is huge. The connection with Spark, the connection with Maker, the fact that he put the money into their liquidity pool for a snapshot, the fact that there was funds going back and forth, him using certain wallets to reach, make it look like he was looking to try to peg DAI, and then buying SDAI. As soon as he bought SDAI, I was like, okay, like something's really up here. And that's whenever I started investigating actual Maker voting and Aave voting. Mainly these votes got pushed through because of Rune Christensen, the owner of MakerDAO, Winter's Mute, who plays another vital role in this, and then Richard and themselves. They literally outvoted everyone in as far as the governance goes. Like, he literally got in as a brand new protocol, won every single vote in Maker. Well, but he used to work there, so of course he had the connection. Did the same thing with Aave, and was able to pretty much push the terms, and then also offered them returns in the form of 10%, so 5% of the gains to each of them, meaning that wherever Spark lands, they want to be right there with them, because they're incentivized to do so, as well as they're incentivized for these tokens to peg. Especially for Maker, who's going to be dropping their token and trying to launch not their own chain, right? So it gets, they get the stables, they get all their other assets, their liquidity pools. So it just makes sense for them to come over and use those copied liquidity pools, and through in the form of either SDAI, or literally just being able to burn and mint through an admin function that's in SDAI. That value will literally mint on the chain immediately. It will no longer be on ETH, but that's literally how they did it. And you can go look right now. Like, just go type in DAI, and you'll see mdai.io. You'll see arkdai.com, bonusdai.com. And if you go look on there, it'll say it's a phishing scam, so it's not tracked. But if you look further into it, you'll see that there's loads of stables based on the name sitting inside the actual, at one point in time, you see all these transactions happen, and then all of a sudden you see a contract get made, and then you see the value technically, quote unquote, disappear. Again, it was done so Ethereum people wouldn't have to freak out about stuff leaving. And also, if they didn't know, this is literally the biggest move that one could possibly envision, to literally use straight up DeFi and DeFi mechanics to be able to not hide the value, because if anyone, but to be able to put the value in a place that someone wouldn't look for it, and then knowing that it would be copied over, just like we saw him do with the Maker pool. He literally made a Maker DAO pool with 2 million in USDC and 2 million in Maker tokens in 2020, and he pulled it out, and that's when it clicked. That's like, oh man. So he's always been providing liquidity. So he's got liquidity pools probably for every single of the major assets, from Uniswap to Aave to Compound. And I think some of them are going to be doing it themselves, but some of the other protocols, definitely Ethereum, I believe probably Wrap Bitcoin. He already owns a lot of the supply anyway, so he was probably already, preparing himself for that. And then literally they could just like that be able to mint value onto the chain. Does anyone have any questions? I know that's quite a bit of information.
So Rick,
but I mean, we have time. I'll hand it over again.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So Rick, to circle back to where you started in the space,
Yeah.
And for the benefit of people who may have just randomly joined and
Absolutely.
don't know about Pulse or don't know about what's happening there, and may have heard of Richard, who gets interesting press, shall we say, from various places. When you say he's used an infinite money glitch, it's not a scam, is it? He's literally just used the technology that already existed, and that Ethereum and other chains could have done the same themselves. Like this is
it's not even
how
Richard that
the technology works, right?
Correct. It wasn't even Richard technically. Richard might have been helping the guy, but it was the MakerDAO engineer that's a hexagon that helped come up with this idea of being able to use Morph Labs, which is you can use your wrapped staked Ethereum as a collateral or just hold it, and you can literally make APY on it. Say an SDAI itself that he created, which is literally DAI savings for DAI, also gives you APY. So you can make APY on top of your APY just by holding those assets. And as a PSM model, it's literally just a rolling income stream at the value that he could be bringing over in billions, meaning at even just 5%, you're talking $50 million a year that could be hitting the chain. And I believe that it's going to be higher than that. Right now, it's at both of them are at around 10%. So I mean, you're talking $100 million rolling in to the chain if those saving rates and those APYs stay where they're at. And so that's what I mean by infinite money glitch, because no longer are the days of a stablecoin that has to fluctuate against the actual market. It's because the market maker itself sees someone coming in and buying for $1. It'll push the price up to $1, sells it to them for $1, but they grab they're able to take the profits themselves. So and then vice versa. So it's like, if you ever heard of a Seguinage ecosystem, or the one that Tomb Finance uses, where you use a bond and you allow people to, if it goes up or down, they get to buy it for 99 cents or they get to sell it for $1.02. Instead of allowing that to happen, the actual market maker, the AMM bot, is the one that does it, giving the actual ecosystem the profit rather than the bond makers, which is better because then you're able to provide a stable APY over time based on the actual ecosystem's growth, as well as perpetuals, lending. The thing with DAI is that you can't it's a token that survived like it did because you can't take a loan out against it. Like flash loaning, you can't flash loan it unless it's worth like 66 cents. So when you take a loan out against DAI, it's 66 cents to the dollar. So it's very hard to make a profit off DAI by taking a flash loan out against it. SDAI, different story. SDAI will be bringing 20x leverage and flash loans to the actual DAI ecosystem. So and perpetual trades with it as an asset, like SDAI against Bitcoin, SDAI against X, SDAI against. It's already being built on Spark Swap as well. That perpetual. So that's another another type of form for them to make money and and the 20x leverage. People love leverage, but this is part of something that DAI didn't have the capability of doing because they saw so much. That's one of the reasons why DAI survives and has survived as long as it has. I hope I touched on that a little much.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyone with questions, go ahead.
Talk about when Richard bought ETH, and everybody's saying he bought the top, but he really kind of shorted it with the SDAI.
Yeah, technically 100%. So whenever everyone thought that he bought $400 million worth of SDAI. I think that he did it prematurely because there was other people doing it, and at that time, Spark Finance didn't announce that only staked ETH in certain forms could be used as collateral, but he was grandfathered in. So he still is going to get the airdrop because I saw the leaderboard, but So he took that, and then so it was, when we know it was 400 million, right? And now all of a sudden it's just 200 million. So it's like, where did it go? In my opinion, multiple places, because he was able to. He's deployed the S die. Yeah, so he would have had die that gave him S die. So he could, and since he's the owner of the protocol, he could mint it as collateral. So he literally put that with all the other liquidity pools that he had copied. Right now, he's doing it again. So he's still making money with that. He's putting to work that die while still holding the S die as well. So not only does he have the liquidity pools that got copied, he's literally building on top of them even more right now while we speak, because he's able to deploy the as the S die as collateral while still holding the ETH. So yeah, the S die is, just the same reason why we can't see the other funds. Like I'll show it in the chat later. If you go to Arkham and you type in all those wallets, you'll see like dollar for dollar, like almost pretty close. It'll be like 19 million, and then eight 19,500,000 worth of S die sitting right there. And then as as the market was going down against the ETH falling, he was actually getting more S die in his wallet. So in my opinion, he probably did some sort of a short. Technically, it definitely wasn't a long, and it was done, I believe, because he wanted to hurry up, have something to use as collateral, so he could have funds to deploy quicker. Because when he did it was whenever we had just reached market equilibrium on the Ethereum chain. He literally did it based off of that metric. And he also wanted to buy SDAI and use it to start loaning it out, because by doing so he increases himself up in the leaderboard in the Spark DAO, which means he can then have and help control governance of that protocol, because it's going to be such a great protocol. He wants to support it. So doing it the way that he did it, he was able to obtain and still be able to obtain points into their ecosystem, and we have our own instance of it running too. So it's just like it's a double-edged money making thing for what he did, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's it. The SDAI is 100% in his wallet, and I believe some of the stuff that he collateralized with is being deployed as we speak. Inside some of those same ecosystem tokens that we once that I had found today, because there's a lot of movement going on, because the gas is so cheap now that he could literally deploy, or not him, but could be Winter's Mute, right? Which is Winter's Mute is literally a protocol that bootstraps liquidity for new L1s. They did it for Solana in 2020. They literally are part of MakerDAO's governance and Aave's governance. They run arbitrage bots, which is what we see on Pulsechain, but they do it in a benevolent manner, meaning they will move $30,000, $40,000 around in liquidity for 1% or even losses, right? Depending on how the bots are fed, they can actually trade for losses. I know this because I learned how to run one literally a couple days ago. So through that connection alone, that's where it all started for me, because they were given $25 million by MakerDAO's DAO, and that $25 million they sacrificed around 22 million, meaning they probably were a part of sacrificing the funds, and which again incentivizes them to help this chain succeed. So and you can literally look up Winter's Mute, type in MakerDAO, and you can like I said, I'll make a post that actually shows the connection between the two. I mean, they're worth tens of billions of dollars. But yeah, like the SDAI is definitely, you can go to Arkham, you can look at all those wallets that are holding ETH, and I had to double and triple check. There's SDAI there, and the other, you can see the DAI being sold, but that's how that works, right? If you're holding one and then you collateralize one, you can mint more. And then I think that's what he did. And so he's even deployed another 200 million on ETH to literally bootstrap even more liquidity. So when it's time, he's going to have more than enough to come over and, getting the peg, to reach $1, and then of course maintain peg. I think the whole ecosystem itself is going to do a very strong job of getting it to where it needs to get, holding more AMAs. I mean, there's no stronger community than PDI, and with PDI being tied so directly to, Atropa and Teddy Bear, and as we all know, other ecosystems are now launching stuff into it as well as myself. So just being able to kind of leverage PDI, burn it, do what we can to spread the word, because this is, in my opinion, going to change a ton of people's lives. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just, from what I can tell and from what I can see, this is the biggest 9D chess move that anyone could possibly imagine. Like, we thought it was already big before, but the way that it's where it's grown to now, and the amount of the smart, like the amount of people, the smart people that are following this and that are encouraging each other to be a part of this. And it's just something that you don't see. And I definitely didn't see it on BSC, right? Like, people are coming up to me going, hey, when you launch, I'll give you 1% of the supply, and I'll give you 1%. We can pair it with liquidity and burn it. That doesn't happen anywhere, guys. Like, we might be upset that we're not on Solana right now, but that's just such a grifty chain. And yes, maybe we can go over there and help onboard people and get them involved, which is exciting. And I think it's great. But at the end of the day, this narrative will do what it needs to do, and it's gonna, like, I think Hodlnomics touched on it before, pretty much have something for everybody. It'll have, their Bitcoin if they want their Bitcoin. It'll have staking and this. I mean, it'll have every single aspect of every single type of token, and literally the best incentive token aspect, tokenomic, that has ever been built. So with Ink doing its thing, and then Pulsex burning, I don't care if Pulse stays low. Keep our gas keep our gas cheap, and we still have the ability to turn on that protocol to literally 10x or 10-10x the gas fees when we're ready for that anyway. So it's ETH is gonna, gas or not, they're not Pulsechain. They didn't have liquidity pools. They didn't have the same type of technologies. How quickly we've grown as a community in building these things is unmatched on any other chain ever, period. But the ability for us to pair liquidity together and do it from day one and literally build our own stablecoin is huge. And then even after it pegs, that money can then be redeployed and continue to, make others money, right? And that's the beauty of, like the giving tree, so to speak. And I know that it's unfortunate sometimes whenever the biggest influencers in the space seem to knock it and seem to knock the theory, but that's okay. If they're going to live, hurt people, but I think they'll eventually come around. And if they don't, they're just, they're going to continue to either be upset or throw shade one way or another. But the way that the Atropa dev's doing it, and Hex will also reach parity and surpass, easily, in my opinion. So I think if they understood what was going on here, that they would literally be able to help their own bags.
So
go ahead, bud.
With all of the research that you've done and Nine Irons has done, and there's a lot of eyes looking at all this and starting to track all this. If someone on the street or a reporter walked up to you in 12 months, what do you see the crypto space looking like? What do you see Pulse, and where do you see Pulse within that? Like, what's it going to look like to the average in that sense?
In about a year?
Let's say a year.
Say Pulse will have then some of the biggest eyes and the biggest money and the biggest flow of things going on to it. One of the reasons is because PDI will be the only DAI, the real DAI to exist. In all the exchanges, what do they use? They use the DAI that we use, the contract address that we use. That contract address is no longer going to exist anywhere else except for Pulse. So when they're coming out and they're trying to get a hold of DAI, those exchanges, they're going to have to come in through our front door and do that. And if once they start understanding that some of our best meme assets and utility assets are highly tied to them to DAI, it would just make sense for them to also be looking at the gas token, and Pulsex, So it's gonna do what it needs to do to bring eyes in, and then I personally believe that the value of the chain is going to, liquidity wise, a billion, 2 billion, in a year with just liquidity wise, yeah, if not more than that. I firmly believe that. I firmly do.
So we do have a question
think,
in the comments from Gabos.
yeah,
Will wrapped pegged BTC or Pulse BTC also get a peg, do you think?
well, what is that? Peg what? What token?
Will WPBTC, so wrapped Pulse BTC, also get pegged?
100%. Yeah, Rat BTC is like it has a very low supply. So not only will it peg, it will probably be 10x higher than Bitcoin, because it's literally 150,000 in supply versus 21 million. So not only will Rat BTC peg, in my opinion, it will surpass Bitcoin, and it'll surpass the one on ETH, and then it might even bring the one up on ETH up due to arbitrage.
That's kind of cool. I mean, and it's kind of cool in the sense that really it's existing technology. Like we're seeing it with synthetics, we're seeing it with bridges.
Yes.
This is just how it works now. And the
Yep,
healthiest, strongest chain will win, and that's going to be the one that's for the people.
Yes, 100%, and it's got to be for the people. And and we're doing it organically. It's been tough. But the market will reward us for us waiting. This is how markets work. Yeah, we had to shake hands out. Yes, there are people selling their bags on us. Yes, there are. But this is why Richard did it this way. He wants us and those other people that weren't in Hex or that didn't sacrifice a bunch of money to still have the ability to, do well, right? He's not shitting on anyone. He just knows that this is the biggest and best way to onboard everybody, and without having to do anything except literally, do what he does best, outsmart everyone, and then being a genuine person and maybe acting like an ass, but he does that because it takes all the shade off of all the other devs in the space. And with him going head on, it's almost like they owe him, a little bit of tip of the hat. I think it's kind of respect given. I think some of it's a front whenever people assume that they don't like Richard Hart. I think Richard has, put a lot on his shoulders, and he's proven himself time and time again as a leader, as an innovator. And whenever I found this out yesterday, or found this out today, and I wrote it in the chat, I had to stop and pull over and be like, whoa, okay. If he didn't do this, he literally airdropped the biggest prolific scammer in the world that is going to destroy the chain because of how much money they have. If it's not him, but there's no way he would do that. I actually went and looked at other contracts that were scams, and you look at it, there are no tokens in those. He literally gave them nothing, right? The ones that are that I know that, and that's when I figured it out, is they were all, the supply was split up evenly between all of them. It's completely split up. So like USDC, whatever, it was $3,999, and 10,000 wallets all had that token. Not saying they all had that much USDC, but this is how he split it up. Some of them did, some of them had more, some of them had less. It just depends. And then I believe that he's continuing to fill it up as we speak. I think he's continuing to work on and making more and more liquidity, literally, as we're talking about this right now. And that's why I know that people are eventually going to find this out, because they will see that these tokens that I'm talking about are moving and doing things on that chain. And I know, and then there'll be a point, a time, Oracle or S through SDI, where maybe it's fed in over time, but I think no, he's not going to go across. I just think it's too sketchy to go across a bridge. I think the ability to kind of burn into a wormhole, so to speak, and then be able to mint on this side, that means that we literally just have it. We might even see a new type of we might even see Link come out with their technology that allows cross-chain dApps, to where we could just have our liquidity pools sitting over there, and we could literally just be trading straight, into those liquidity pools, and they're still be owned by Pulsechain, and then again, still not have to go through the hassle of putting money into a bridge. So I mean, and then Spark is also coming up with certain methods and certain mechanics of. I think we talked about it earlier. It's like it doesn't have to be a stable or a pegged eco thing. It can literally be a token that runs off of an undercollect, like I was talking, the Segwinage kind of ecosystem, to where you can, put in shorts and longs and then be able to buy it for 40 cents cheaper and sell it, back to the peg or back to the dollar. Or will it peg at $1? Right now, all the S dies are all over $1. All of them are all of them are over $1, and still getting hella APY, right? And then there'll be a time where Maker and Spark kind of part ways. That's whenever Spark will launch their new stablecoin, and Maker will change their name, and then they'll launch their chain, and then it'll kind of be a free for all. But I believe that Pulsechain will be the hub of DAI, like the DAI, and it's just it's big brain stuff, and I'm sure that he's showed them some of these wallets and some of the stuff that he has done to where they've gotten to the point to where they're on board with it. I mean, if you look at the dice, the S die for Aave, it literally looks like it has a pulse chain rim around it. I know their colors are similar, but even their S die, the Aave S die, looks like it's a pulse chain token. And I think this is more of a tip of the hat to the fact that they know where the protocol came from, they know why the protocol was built, and they know how big it could be for them and their community to not only have the value where they're at, but to be able to literally mint more value over here. And then Aave will probably eventually launch their own chain too. I believe Richard has front run the market on this. I think he did the same thing with Hex, but he did it maybe 6 or 8 months in advance. This one, he's done by a couple of years. So any other chain that tries to catch up now, they're a year behind. They're easily a year behind where we're at. Because you have to have that layered liquidity, you have to have tokens launching, and you have to have tokens failing, because you have to have dead liquidity ends for this to work. Without the dead liquidity ends, you just have the money completely circulating around with the arbitrage bots, without them like dipping down and sending stuff down into the leveraged layers, so to speak. So the further that's why Atropa is launching the way that it is, right? You have this one layer, and then some tokens survive, and then you have another layer, some tokens survive, and another layer, some tokens survive. But the arbitrage bots will always go back down to the very bottom layer, where $1 is leveraged up to $30-$40 inside the ecosystem. So it's like literally able to leverage the ecosystem in a decentralized money market. That's because that's what happens within communities like an oil field town, right? A bunch of money comes in because they're drilling oil, and then all of a sudden the oil dries up and everyone leaves. But there's still a few people around spreading money around, but it's not as much as it once was. And then they go off to the next town, and then so there's still a little bit of flow of money going from here to there. Then that's the boom town, and then all of a sudden it collapses. So that's just how economics in general work, and that's what he's building. He's even built like a drug addicted economic system to where every now and then the money falls down, or the person or the economic model falls down into a loophole of catastrophe. And that's why those tokens are down there. They're literally just seemingly continuously being pushed down forever. And you need that, because that's dead liquidity, and those dead liquidity ends are what's needed. And that's another vital thing within this ecosystem of Atropa being able to maintain control and help push PDI, and I believe help peg it and maintain it through methods that we've never seen before.